In football, records are meant to be broken. More goals, more trophies, more titles. Sooner or later, someone always comes along. Someone faster, someone younger, someone better. But some records aren't numbers. Some records are stories. In 2014, Lionel Messi stood just one match away from football's greatest prize. And he lost. For 8 years, the question followed him everywhere. Can Messi ever win the World Cup? Then came 2022 and everything changed. Messi didn't just win the trophy, he scored, he created, he led Argentina through one of the most dramatic tournaments in football history. And when it was finally over, he lifted the one trophy that had defined his entire career. But now comes the harder question. Can anyone ever surpass Messi's World Cup legacy? Maybe someone will win more World Cups. Maybe someone will score more goals. Maybe someone will reach more finals. But can anyone create a World Cup story more complete, more dramatic, and more unforgettable than Messi's? That's the real question. 8 years before Messi lifted the World Cup, he was already standing at the edge of history. It was 2014. Argentina had reached the World Cup final, and Messi was just one match away from the one trophy missing from his career. But Germany stood in the way. For over 90 minutes, the final remained on a knife's edge. Then, in extra time, Mario Götze scored. Germany had won. Argentina's dream was over. And once again, the same question followed Messi. Could he ever win the World Cup? Because despite all the goals, trophies, and individual awards, one piece was still missing. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. And that's what made 2022 different. Messi wasn't chasing history anymore. History was chasing him. 8 years later, the moment finally came. Qatar 2022. Messi was no longer the young player from 2014. He was 35 years old, and everyone knew this could be his final chance. Argentina's tournament began with disaster. They lost their opening match to Saudi Arabia. Suddenly, the pressure was even greater, but Messi didn't disappear. He responded. He scored against Mexico. He led Argentina past Australia, and in the knockout stages, the pressure only grew. Against the Netherlands, Argentina came within minutes of reaching the semifinals before the game exploded into chaos, penalties, pressure, and once again, Messi survived. Then came the final. France, Mbappe, and 90 minutes that would become part of football history. Messi scored. Argentina took control, but just when it seemed over, France came back. Then Messi scored again in extra time. But even that wasn't enough to finish the story. It came down to penalties. One final test, one final moment of pressure. And then Argentina won. After years of waiting, after the pain of 2014, Lionel Messi finally lifted the World Cup. But that's why his legacy is different. He didn't simply arrive and win. He failed first. He waited. He carried the pressure. And when the final moment came, he finished the story. But winning one World Cup isn't enough, because Messi's legacy wasn't built in one tournament. It was built through failure, pressure, and finally, the perfect ending. And that's what makes his story so hard to surpass. And if anyone could challenge that legacy, it might be Kylian Mbappe. He already won the World Cup at just 19 years old. Then, in 2022, he came within inches of winning it again. A hat trick in the final. One of the greatest individual performances football has ever seen. But France still lost. And that's what makes his story so interesting. Mbappe has already achieved things most players can only dream of. But he is still chasing something Messi finally found, the perfect ending. And with more World Cups potentially ahead of him, the question is no longer whether Mbappe can make history. It's whether he can create a story even greater than Messi's. So what would it actually take to surpass Messi's World Cup legacy? Winning once might not be enough. Winning twice might not be enough either. A player would need the trophy, the unforgettable performances, the pressure, and the defining moments. They would need to carry an entire nation when everything is on the line. And when the final arrives, they would have to deliver. Because Messi's greatest World Cup record isn't a number. It's the story. A story of failure, pressure, redemption, and finally, victory. And that's the impossible standard. Not just to win the World Cup, but to make the whole world remember how you won it. And then 2026 happened. For a moment, it looked like Messi might write one more impossible chapter. At 39 years old, he led Argentina to another World Cup final, his third. And now, 2026. For Argentina, it was another chance to do something almost impossible, to defend the World Cup. And for Messi, perhaps one final chance to leave football's greatest stage with another unforgettable ending. But this time, the story ended differently. Argentina faced Spain. For more than 100 minutes, the final remained alive. Then, in extra time, Spain found the goal. Argentina lost. Spain won. Argentina 0. And Messi's final World Cup ended in defeat. But maybe that's exactly why his legacy is so difficult to surpass. Because it isn't a perfect story. It's a complete one. He lost the final in 2014. He returned 8 years later and won everything in 2022. Then, at 39 years old, he came back one more time and reached another final in 2026. Victory, defeat, failure, redemption, and the courage to keep coming back. So, can anyone ever surpass Messi's World Cup legacy? Maybe. One day, someone might win more World Cups. Someone might score more goals. Someone might reach more finals. But to truly surpass Messi, they would need more than numbers. They would need the trophy, the unforgettable performances, the pressure, the defining moments, and a story powerful enough to survive generations. Because Messi's greatest World Cup record may not be a statistic at all. It's the journey, and perhaps that's the hardest record of all to break. Not the number of trophies, but the story behind them. Subscribe to Curious Bird for more stories like this, and let us know in the comments, can anyone ever surpass Messi?